Oh, good morning, everybody. On this podcast, we're going to talk about Breonna Taylor. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter again. So yeah.
And sometimes I gotta cope. And sometimes I gotta.
Hey, everybody. So yeah, I didn't want to do this podcast. I was going to do this last night. I didn't want to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really want to do it again. This is now, I don't even know, the fourth podcast or the third podcast that I'm going to be doing about this subject. I'm not going to title this Breonna Taylor because when I did the Black Lives Matter podcast, it got a bunch of listens and it got a bunch of views. And while that was nice, that was bittersweet because it felt like I was, almost co-opting or that feels like clout chasing. Is what it felt like. You know what I mean? It felt like clout chasing. Like, great, what a bittersweet moment. I'm getting all these listens, but then it's on the back of tragedy. And that's what this is. But I just want to continue to reiterate, I guess, right? If anyone comes across my podcast or comes across my YouTube channel or comes across whatever, you're going to come across and know exactly where I fucking stand here. You know what I mean? You're going to know exactly where I stand. There will be no ambiguity here. And remember, if you listen to my Black Lives Matter podcast, I talked about how I wanted to remain ambiguous as a business stratagem. You know what I mean? Where I can just sit here. You don't know where I stand. Kind of like what Barstool tries to do, except Barstool definitely, we know where they fucking stand. They're a bunch of racist cocksuckers. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about Barstool here. Where you know where I stand. You know what I mean? And I'm cool with that. If that's going to limit, listen, this is going to tie into some of the things I'm going to talk about. I'm cool with doing that because in this country, and I've talked about this before, we value money as worth. We think money equals worth. We think money equals, that money equals happiness. And to a certain extent, let me be clear, because I've had this conversation too. Does money buy happiness? Yeah, it doesn't buy happiness, but it makes it can sure get rid of some anxieties and some levels of if you're anxious anxiety can cause depression. So if money gets rid of these bills and these issues here, yeah, it can bring some happiness, but it's not going to improve your quality of life, right? That's really the point. Money does not bring you quality of life. You know what I mean? It can bring you a beautiful life. That's not quality of life, right? Because if you have money but aren't free, none of that matters. Right, this is what the Kanye, I don't even want to get into Kanye, but that's what he's trying to intimate. Not that that's even a good example. And the reason I'm saying that this ties in with what I'm saying is because, one, if I lost a fan base or if I lose the opportunity at a fan base for this, I'm cool keeping my integrity. That gives me quality of life. Integrity gives me quality of life. Two, because when I talked about the athletes, and this will be the third time I say this on a podcast, and shout out to somebody, a close friend of mine who pointed this out to me when I said it on my Black Lives Matter podcast that I didn't even think was that important. But the more I think about it, the more prescient that became is you'll give them money, but you won't give them change. And that stays the same today after they essentially, they convict one police officer with wanton endangerment, which just means that this person did something that was dangerous that endangered people in the area, which is bullshit, and let the other two cops off the hook, but awarded them a wrongful death suit of $12 million. You see, they'll give you money, but they won't give you change. They won't give you justice. This was my point about the athletes on previous podcasts. The reason why I said that was based on the athletes. Because the argument for racists is always, oh, you're millionaires, shut the fuck up, go and dribble, shut up and dribble, blah, blah, all this bullshit. It's a way to enslave a people. It's to say money is value. Money brings you a life. Money gives you equality, and it doesn't. Money is not equality because they can kill you without being convicted of it. That's not equality. That's not equality. I forgot who it was that said society is judged on how they treat the weak. I can't remember who said that. Is that Gandhi? Gandhi, who's another racist, but he said some good things sometimes. Which that seems like a hot take if you don't know history. We're going to talk about that in a bit too. History. Society is judged by how they treat the weakest people, right? The lowest people. That's how we need to judge the society. Because right now, here's $12 million for her life. That's what you've decided her life was worth. Dreams taken away, kids. She could have had children that could have made $12 million, right? None of that matters. That's what people don't understand. Her lineage has been wiped away. A lineage worth more than $12 million has been wiped away. $12 million is a way for you to tell you to shut the fuck up and go away. That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's been the status quo. You know why? Because before George Floyd died, no one knew Breonna Taylor's name. Let's be clear. No one knew her name. Not that no one. I'm sorry. That's wrong and ignorant of me to say. People knew her name. No question about it. But it wasn't what it is today. They weren't going to have T-shirts that said say her name. You weren't going to turn 2K on and see people with shirts that say her name. And in fact, I would almost say that the imagery that say her name has outgrown the actual person. For sure has outgrown the case, because people are still out here saying that she died in her bed, and that's not true either. You know what I mean? Not that that's important, but just the point being, the legend has outgrown the person, which is partly part of an issue that we have in this country. You know what I mean? Where we can't keep anything steady here. Everything blows up. We lose sight of what's important, what's happened. So it's easy. So what happens is me, and people who are here fighting this battle, right? They understand that $12 million doesn't solve the case. Racists, though, this is a way to keep racist. What are you talking about? Stop bitching. This is better than justice. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's cool. That's a cherry on top. But one, they've been slandering her name. Let's get to some of the facts real quick, just for those who don't know. And you can go look this up yourself. They think that they thought she was moving drugs out of, not that she was moving drugs out of her apartment. She had an ex-boyfriend who sold drugs, is what happened. Which we're not going to get into why people sell drugs, which is, again, just another construct of racism, but no problem. Y'all can have that for now. She had a boyfriend who sold drugs. And they claimed that she was getting suspicious packages in the mail of drugs. The cops that were there that night claimed that they saw the ex-boyfriend coming and going out of the apartment with suspicious packages. Don't know if that's true, and we'll talk about why in a moment. They went to the Surgeon General of the mail in Kentucky and asked him, hey, are they getting suspicious packages? He said no. There's no evidence that they're getting anything suspicious there. The cops said, nah, fuck it, we don't believe you. They then go for this no-knock warrant, which they then execute at 12 o'clock in the morning. She's in bed with her boyfriend, not the drug dealer, her new boyfriend, who is not this drug dealer dude over here. She's in bed. They're watching a movie. They start banging on the door. The boyfriend and her get up to go towards the door. They don't know what's going on because these assholes are banging on the door. Now, it gets a little shady. They don't know. The cops said that they announced that they were there. Witnesses said they didn't, right? The cops don't do themselves any favors because, again, they start showing after this happens, especially, they start showing the propensity to lie. Surprise, surprise. Her boyfriend gets confused, pulls out his gun. They break the door down with a battering ram, and the boyfriend lets off a shot that supposedly hits one of the cops. So this is important because the cop says he shot by her boyfriend. But where he says he shot at, in the area, there's no blood of his. So we don't know if he shot by him or if he shot later by possibly the cops who have now let off 20 rounds. They shoot 20 rounds into the apartment. The one who's accused of wanton endangerment shot 10 rounds blindly. Just let off 10 inside the apartment. Blindly. That's why he was accused of wanton endangerment. That's why he was the only one fired. The other one shot 10 times. I would argue that all of them, again, should be arrested because the person who shot at them was not shot. An innocent bystander was shot. Breonna Taylor. Shot and killed. 6 times shot. Some of those bullets hit an apartment behind them where there's a child sleeping. The cops then, he then calls the police. Her boyfriend calls the police because he doesn't know what's happening. And he's like, hey, someone just shot my girlfriend. The cops fill out a report where they say Breonna Taylor is fine. Breonna Taylor's mother gets on the scene. They tell her mother Breonna Taylor is alive. Breonna Taylor was dead pretty much a minute after she was shot, is what the coroner said. That there was no hope for her. Now, who knows? Right? Who knows? Because we understand that this system is pretty much all-encompassing. You know what I mean? And the coroners, guess who they work with? See, there's an issue in this country that is somewhat unspoken. I think most people know about it, but a lot of people are not aware of it. The district attorneys, coroners, all of these people, and the cops, they all work together, right? They all work together. So they almost have an unwritten, not responsibility, but unwritten want to work with each other. There is email. What case was this? Shit, what case was this? I'm getting confused. I'm mixing cases up. I don't know if I saw this in a case or this was part of a documentary that showed a drug lab employee flirting with the DA, with a district attorney. Well, how could a district attorney be flirting? That's a conflict of interest. You understand? It's a conflict of interest. All of these people flirt with each other. You understand? They all flirt with each other. So who knows if the coroner is right that she was dead? Who knows? Who knows? We know that the cops administered no attention, lied that she was alive, lied to her mom that she was alive, and she was dead the whole time, laying on the floor of her hallway, dead for no reason. The point being, right, is that my argument has always been when you're having civil discourse is eliminated from this country. There's no such thing because everything happens online and it's just a screaming match and nothing gets figured out. Stop participating in these. Everyone, I beg of you to stop. You're actually not getting anywhere, and I would argue you're making the problem worse. Because when you argue with someone who is opposed to you, you start going further and further apart until you find the confirmation bias you're looking for, right? As opposed to being closer together. When you get in face with someone and I can explain this to them in their face and their arguments are easily poking holes into their arguments and I'm not threatening their life, right? You get further than discourse on a social media platform. It doesn't exist. Stop arguing on theirs. The point being, I've always said these arguments, these conversations are not good faith because you're always going to move the bar. You're always going to move the bar. When Trayvon was killed, it was, well, stand your ground. Trayvon beat the shit out of him. What was he doing in that neighborhood? Ahmaud Arbery. Well, what was he doing in that neighborhood? He was in this abandoned house. This house, whatever. Looks like he was stealing. Okay, whatever you say. George Floyd. Well, he's a felon, and he's okay. Continue moving the bar. Breonna Taylor. Well, her boyfriend shot at him. It needs to stop, and there needs to be a full stop here because you're not going to tell me that police are well trained. This is why they say all cops are bad. And again, I don't argue that all cops are bad. I don't. And maybe I'm naive. Maybe I am naive. I've talked about this in the past. The reason why I think they say all cops are bad is really because of the systems that put them in positions that don't allow them to be good. But there are people who are further than that who say, no, the actual individuals are trash. You feel me? I know some of them are trash. I've talked about that too. But this is the point. You're going to tell me they're well trained? One shot gets let off in their direction. They let off 20 back and kill the wrong person. Neither one of them was the right person to kill, let me be clear. But they don't kill the person who shot at them. They kill an innocent person who's there. And what we do in this dumbass country, which might happen in the world, who knows? We're fed propaganda, and we don't even realize. I'm going to talk about this later with Fred. I don't want to get too in-depth right now. What we do in this country, which has been apparent, almost everyone, not everyone, a lot of people know this. If you understand anything about misogyny in this country, you know this. And if you don't understand misogyny, you don't know this. We are fucking famous for linking women with their husbands. So if Michelle Obama ever ran for president, We don't even need to go into what ifs. Hillary Clinton, when she ran for president, was, oh, you're just an extension of Bill. But how is that possible? So she doesn't have her own politics? That's what you're saying? She's just Bill? The wife is just the husband, is what you're saying? The wife is the husband? That's what we do in this country. That's what we do in this country. We think the husband is the wife. The wife is the husband. Even at the beginning of Hillary, it was Bill's wife, Hillary. Beyonce was Jay-Z's wife for the longest time, for a long time. Before it was like, oh yeah, but Beyonce's like also Beyonce. What the fuck are you talking about? We automatic. There is a million examples of this, where the woman is just the husband. You know what I mean? As if Hillary was getting cheated on by Bill and was like, no, this is cool. I'm cool with this. Rock out. She doesn't just have the politics of Bill just because they're married. That doesn't make sense. And as if Bill has the same politics from 20 years ago. That doesn't make sense. So when someone like Breonna Taylor gets killed, and you're willing to sit there and say, well, the husband shot at the cops, that right there is the exact same, it's the exact same logic. She deserves to die because she was shot at by her boyfriend. Because the cops were shot at by her boyfriend. What? No. She is not him. They are separate people. They are separate people. The argument will always move, is the point. The goalpost for racists will always move. These are not honest conversations. They're not honest conversations. This is not in good faith. Breonna Taylor didn't deserve to die. Those cops deserve to be arrested, as evidenced by the fact that the city gave them $12 million to go away. Because that's what we do. That's what this country does. That's what this country, this is the point. When people wonder why rape victims, because when you get raped, there's a statute of limitation on getting raped is kind of crazy. I get it to a certain extent, but the minority far outweighs the majority. The amount of false rape accusations are a lot lower than people realize. But here's the insanity of all of this. The same people that would bring up false rape accusations are the same people who bring up voter fraud, which, again, very small percentage of that actually happening. Voter fraud, false rape accusations are the same people who say, well, black people are not disproportionately killed by white people because the percentage is this, this, and this. Numbers get played around with by people who don't know math, who don't understand. Same thing with the coronavirus. Same thing with kills less people than the flu. Meanwhile, the coronavirus has killed way more people than the flu this year. So go fucking figure. Go figure. Same people. These are all the same people. Because they're going to move the goalpost. None of these conversations are in good faith. They're not honest conversations. Black Lives Matter. And that's it. If you think all lives matter is the right response, then I'm starting to think your life doesn't even matter. You should just exterminate yourself. I'm sorry. That's not right. You should be removed from holding any responsibility. Your kids should be taken from you because you're probably teaching them the wrong things. You should probably lose yours. I can't imagine you're good at any work unless your work is being racist. Then you're probably excellent at it. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm getting tired and it's exhausting. This conversation is exhausting because nothing is ever going to change. We have been rewriting history in this country since its inception. There's a great book. Shout out to my homie Vic who put me onto this book. I don't actually know if he's the first person who put me onto this book or if somebody else put me onto this book years ago first, and then he put it on to me recently. And I bought it, called his Lies My Teacher Told Me. Is it? Yeah, Lies My Teacher Told Me, which is about history and how we're taught history incorrectly. And this is kind of my point about propaganda, which I'll talk more about Fred. But and I've said this before, the idea that I've brought up this point, the idea that Columbus discovered America when there were people here is an oxymoron. It's pretty much an oxymoron, right? Which is one statement that contradicts the other statement in the same sentence, right? How could he have discovered a place that people were living at? No. He discovered a place for white people, for the Eurocentric part of the world for Europeans. He discovered this place for Europeans who did not know about it, even though that's not completely true. There was evidence that Spaniards had been here, that the Spanish had been here at one point. There was evidence that, well, I guess they're not European, that the Vikings had been here. There was evidence that the Asians had been on the West Coast. The people from the Asian Peninsula had been on the West Coast prior to Columbus. All of this, again, there had been people who had settled this area. We rewrite history. People that landed in Virginia, Europeans that landed in Virginia, people claimed, well, these people, because you ask a racist white person who doesn't know anything about Columbus, oh, but these people were savages, they were cannibals. People who had settled Virginia, Columbus landed further north. There were people who came on ships to settle the area where Virginia is now known. Well, they all brought disease with them, as the Europeans did, because they didn't shower. They didn't believe in showering. Brought diseases with them, which killed off a good population of the Indians. I'm sorry, not the Indians, of the natives. They buried the natives, but they didn't know how to till the land. They didn't know how to grow corn, how to hunt, and they actually ended up digging up the Indians and eating them. They were cannibals. And they've been doing that under the guise of that's what Columbus did. He brought that under the guise of religion, and that's what all of these people do. Columbus is closer to a conqueror than he is to an explorer. He did not come to explore. It was clear based on witnesses that knew Columbus, on people who knew Columbus, that he was coming here for gold. He wasn't coming here to discover a path. No, he was coming here for gold. It was pretty clear of that. You know what I mean? But we've been rewriting history so long that the truth is, we can't even agree on facts. The social dilemma talks about that. You know, and I don't even talk about it because that's like the sexy thing to bring up. Everyone's talking about the social dilemma, right? But everyone is talking about it for different reasons. One, because there's a lot of pseudo-intellectualism out there where people are like, oh, the social dilemma. You see, man, the Matrix. That can't understand how things get under control. I see there are people, one of the things they said, people miss messaging. One of the guys who worked for Facebook said, I don't think anybody had created any of these for evil. No one created them for evil. But when they created them, there was no checks and balances, and they didn't know what had gone. They didn't know what could go wrong until it went wrong. And that's the truth. That's the truth. You know what I mean? People just would rather point at the new sexy object to say, oh, this is this thing, and it's not. But one thing that they do point out as social dilemma, which resonated with me, is their fear of climate change ending the world, because we can't even agree if climate change is real. We can't even agree that climate change is a fact in this country right now. Across the world, people are dealing with this. Understand, it's not just this country. But I'm talking about the greatest country in the world, the propaganda we've been sold. We can't even agree that climate change is real. We can't agree that racism happened. 48% of Americans think that either that the Holocaust is either completely false or exaggerated. 48% of Americans, 48 think that the Holocaust is either made up or exaggerated. Now, that obviously is very misleading, because it could be like 5% who think it's made up, and then the other 43 think it's exaggerated. Not that it makes it better, but at least this 43 knows it happened. They just think that the numbers have been inflated. Is that better or worse? What's harder to disprove? Is it harder to tell a person who doesn't think something happened? Is it harder to show them that it did happen? Or is it harder to show someone who believes it did happen but wasn't as extreme that it was more extreme than they understood? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I don't know what's easier to bring. You know, sometimes it feels easier to bring someone on a fuller swing, because so many people are ignorant to history. It was funny because when I read this book, when I started reading this book, one thing that I caught on almost immediately, right? And if you have any, listen, I'm a smart dude. If you have any semblance of knowledge, you learn pretty quickly when you read more, right? When you read more, and I try to read I try to read a lot. When you read more books, one of the first things you catch on early is, damn, how can I even talk intelligently about this when I didn't know this here? Right? I knew Columbus wasn't what people had portrayed him out to be. I did not know to which level that was. So even before when I was saying that about Columbus, I couldn't even talk intelligently about. Meanwhile, you have people who haven't picked up a book since high school. Since the lies their teacher told them. That's a bar. I'm sorry. Since the lies their teacher told them, they haven't picked up a book. They've never gone out of their way to read anything. They haven't been to a library. They don't buy books. They don't have a bookshelf. They don't even know if books still exist. And these motherfuckers are going to tell you, they have the nerve to argue about history with you, argue about facts, argue about things with you. They haven't picked up a fucking book in years. They've been watching some dude on a YouTube video who said 9/11 was actually dynamite because buildings don't collapse this way. None of these people have done any of the resident work to tell you how a building would fucking collapse. They can't fucking tell you anything. They can't tell you how a pandemic could spread across the world. They can't tell you how fucking diseases pass from animal to man, from animal to man, from man back to animal, and that's what causes some of these diseases to fucking to evolve and turn into other strains of the same fucking disease. These people can't tell you anything. They still believe that someone in China fucked a bat and that created the coronavirus. They think someone in Africa fucked a monkey. That's what made AIDS. These are the same fucking people. They can't tell you anything. But you'll go listen to them. They're on YouTube, so it must be real. It looked good. It confirms my dumbass bias. It sounds good. They didn't read a book that challenges their perceptions of what really happened. Helen Keller's in this book. This is really interesting, something I learned. The story of Helen Keller that we're taught stops with she gets over her disability. The majority of Helen Keller's life is actually her not only fighting for women's suffrage, fighting for civil rights for black people, and also she was like a socialist, a communist, arguably. They don't tell you that story. They don't tell you the full story. The full story about Gandhi isn't told. The full story about Mother Teresa isn't told. Who Mother Teresa had lost her faith early, but realized that she had become a symbol that made people better and decided to rock out with it. But she had seen so many poor people and so many dystopian situations that she had lost her faith early. And we don't know that story. We don't know those stories. We don't know the truth. We've been sold propaganda. And I'm going to get more in depth with this with Fred, because I want to hear his opinion. We're not told the truth in school. I remember having this conversation. Shout out to my one homie. This is not to throw him under the bus, but I'll never forget him saying this to me. And he might have been joking because he's a troll like that. Where we were talking about basketball. And I fancy myself as someone who knows a lot about basketball. And 97.5, the radio station here, which is trash in Philadelphia, had said something about basketball, some insane basketball opinion, which was trash. And I told my homie, they're wrong. And his response was, yeah, but they're on the radio. And I was like, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if they're on the radio. That means they got a communications degree. It doesn't mean they know anything about basketball. It doesn't mean they know anything about basketball. Anyone can have a voice. It doesn't mean they know what the fuck they're talking about. Teachers are not. I know far more teachers who became teachers not because they wanted to be teachers, but because they wanted to do this thing, it didn't quite go that way, and then they became teachers. And that's not to disparage them. That's not because you know what? It takes someone with the largest heart to become a teacher. I can't handle it. I could never become a teacher. I care too much about people, man. I care. I can't do it. I'm too sensitive for it, man. I can't handle it. I'm going to be honest with you. The first kid's going to call me fat. I'm going to break down. I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm going to punch him in the mouth. So I'm joking. I'm joking. The point being, teachers are not infallible. No one is infallible. Okay? Go read the literature yourself. Go get one source and then go get a source that confirms that source. And that's how you know. And if you're going to be lazy and say you don't want to do that, then shut the fuck up about what you're talking about. Shut the fuck up about what you're talking about. Don't tell me Breonna Taylor died because her boyfriend shot at the cops. Don't tell me that, because you haven't read anything. You don't understand shit. You would rather say that to cloak your own racism instead of having a shred of dignity that says, man, I give a fuck about people other than myself. I give a fuck about people who don't look like me. You don't have that. You don't have empathy. You don't contain a shred of empathy. To sit there and say, yo, these cops shot 20 times and killed a person who did not shoot at them. If you just take the basic facts, take out Breonna Taylor, take out her boyfriend. Just put this in a vacuum. There's a hallway with 2 people, 3 cops on the other side of a door of that hallway. They bust into that door. 1 person in that hallway shoots at the cops. The 3 cops shoot the other person in the hallway. Just take the basics of that, put it in a vacuum, and understand how insane that is that these cops are not held responsible for murdering a fucking innocent person. That's the point. That's the point. But again, none of these conversations are real. None of these happen in good faith. Because I'm saying this, I'm telling you this, you're just going to move the benchmark further again. Constantly moving the benchmark. Until what's going to end up happening is, I can prove this all to you all I want, until you're just going to say, well, they did give them money. And that's supposed to make it okay. Money is not equality in this country. $12 million does not actually equate to the 40 acres and the mule that the slaves were promised when they were freed. 40 acres and a mule to till that land, because everyone in this country knows now. Not everyone has always known, but I think more of the people who were disenfranchised are now coming to the conclusion we need land, not buildings. We don't need buildings. We need land. Because you can own a building and the government can come and say, fuck this building. The land is ours. That building is yours. Can you move the building? You need land. That's why they were never given land. Because if had they been given land, the disproportionate amount of wealth in this country would not be what it is. Because that's what it is, land that goes down from generation to generation to generation. No, but you gave them $12 million cash. That doesn't do anything. Hopefully, the family can buy some land, and hopefully they can do something with it. Hopefully, even though we know, I posted this on my Instagram. The CEO of Wells Fargo said that we just don't hire as many black people because the pool of talented black people. Oh man, but no, racism isn't real. But for some reason, the CEO of Wells Fargo can say that, right? And somehow people don't understand. Look, I know the stories in South Philly. I've heard the stories of realtors who won't sell to black people. We know the stories. We've heard those stories. If you live in Philly and you know anyone in South Philly, you've heard that story. I promise you have. That's nothing new. That's nothing new. So you're going to tell me that racism isn't real? And meanwhile, these stories exist in your brain? Just moving the benchmark. Racism is more, there are people who are racist by accident, which sounds so dead. It sounds like a cop-out. But who say all lives matter because they don't understand. They don't know what we know, right? They don't understand how social media has shifted and how all lives matter. That phrase has been co-opted by this agenda, because at the principle, and I had this conversation, the words which we don't attribute any meaning to any longer, the words all lives matter should be a good thing. All lives matter. Black lives, the white lives, the brown lives, all of the lives matter. Yeah, yes, yeah, that's a no-brainer. You know, but was co-opted so that it could combat that black lives mattered. So there are people who are accidentally racist, right? Who don't know that that's happened, so they're saying it because they think it means a good thing, but you know what I mean? It really means this. There are people like that who exist. But there are people who don't want to admit they're racist because of pride. Because when you come and say, if somebody can say, everyone is guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. Typically, I am guilty of this until I have 1 second to think, and I'm like, oh, you're right. I am this way. Someone could be like, Brian, you're toxic. And I could be like, man, fuck out of here. You don't know what the fuck you talking about, toxic. And then a minute later, I'd be like, you're right. I am toxic. Right? So you tell a person you're racist, but their first reaction, I'm not fucking racist. How dare you? Right? It's just pride. But they are racist. They just don't want to admit it. And so what they do, this is why the benchmark moves, because in order to avoid them facing that they're racist, they would rather find a bunch of facts to disprove that this death was unwarranted. No, George Floyd was this, and that. That's why he died. As opposed to just the fact that, no, I'm racist. I'm racist. The idea that someone was killed unlawfully, and meanwhile, guess what, racists? Or guess what, everyone else that's not black. The idea, what Black Lives Matter is fighting for, is specific to the fact that cops are not prosecuted for killing black lives. No one is saying that cops do not kill white people, that cops don't kill brown people. No one is saying any of that. Police brutality in this country is rampant. It is rampant. But there are a grouping of laws and things in the history of country that shows that they have been targeting black people all this time. They've been putting minorities into the poorest areas, and what happened was some of the white people fell in there over time. Some white people fell in there over time, and now they're catching shrapnel too. But the percentage of black people killed by white people, it's disproportionate for based on the total of people that the total number of people that live in this country, the percentage that are black and the percentage that are white, they're not killed at the same rate. That's the point. That's the point. Motherfuckers are just asking for justice. That's the crazy thing about this. People are just saying, hey, can these people get in trouble for killing this black person for seemingly no reason? And people are like, nah, fuck that. You crazy? No, fuck you. What? Jesus Christ. You're going to tell me it's the greatest country in the world? We live with the least empathetic people. We live with the least amount of empathetic people. There's no fucking empathy here. No one contains a shred of it. You don't care about anyone but yourself. If you can't just understand on the very basic principle that no person should be killed, no cop should be killing a person. Let's just be clear. Cops shouldn't be killing people. Now, we understand that there are situations, sure, a cop gets shot at. I can understand how a cop kills that person. I can't understand how a cop blindly kills the other person who did not shoot at them. And it's cool. I don't really understand that part. The entire failure in this Breonna is just one failure after the next to get a conviction that doesn't even fucking exist. They go search the apartment while Breonna Taylor is dying. There's no drugs there. Of course there's not. There wasn't drugs there in the first place. They didn't have proof that there was drugs there ever. Reasonable doubt. I said this on the last podcast when the cops when the NBA went on strike, that the cops will pull you over for a traffic infraction that didn't happen. Right? Because the reasonable doubt is the color of your skin. That's their reasonable doubt. It's prejudice. So they pull you over because, oh, you were going 36 into 35. But they really want to see if there's anything else on here, anything else in here. You know what I mean? That's how it happens. If you're a white person and you call the cops on a black person right now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that that's attempted murder, but you white people out there, please be mindful. Be mindful. The cops are not to be called for everything. Because you might get somebody killed with no recourse to it. All right, I think I've depressed myself enough. Prayers go out to Breonna Taylor's family, to everybody. Prayers go out to everyone in Louisville who are going to be protesting, and the cops are going to be, I mean, it's been happening across the country. Prayers to everybody. Be safe out there. There's been a lot of messaging going on. Don't take pictures of protesters, please, because they will find you based on social media pictures and social media accounts. If you think it's the sexy thing to be at the protest and you take a selfie, don't do it. Be smarter than that. Everyone be safe. It's heartbreaking. I hope this is the last podcast. It probably won't be, because maybe it should be. I don't even know. If anyone has any feelings about this, let me know, and we could do a podcast. I don't want to be the only one talking about this. I feel like, I got to get shit off my chest sometimes, and that's why I'm doing it. That's why I did this. So I wanted to get this off my chest, so I did it. Everyone, be safe. Wash your hands. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor, even though I don't think that can even be happening. I don't even know if that can happen anymore, but I think we're just going to say that. I'm going to just say that for the rest of my life. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. And that's it.
And sometimes I gotta cope. And sometimes I gotta